Hello, everybody. I am Drew Duncan, and this is the Sync 57 Sports Show. Normally, I would say plenty to get to today, but it's a Saturday, and we're just going to talk about Syracuse and Clemson. A, because it was an important game in the college football landscape, especially when it comes to the CFP. B, I'm a huge Syracuse fan. And C, why not? All the other games are blowouts right now, so might as well work. Am I right? Okay, so, going into the game, I said that Syracuse needed to do a few things if they were going to win this football game. Number one, they were going to have to create a lot of turnovers. They did. Two, they were going to have to score points off of those turnovers. Only did one time, and that was the defense, who was able to put points on the board with a 90-plus touchdown on the run back on the fumble. And then the other thing is the offense was going to have to rely on the legs of Schrader in order to be able to win the football game. That they did. First half, it was evident to me that Syracuse didn't believe that Schrader could beat Clemson with his arm. They were running purposefully option plays, fake toss plays that were designed basically for the quarterback. 63 yards in the first half rushing. In fact, at one point, Schrader led all players in that game in rush yards. Syracuse defense forced 4 turnovers in that football game. And I've always said that if you turn the football over that much, you really just don't deserve to win. Conversely, I have also always said, if you force that many turnovers and you can't score the points necessary to put the other team away, you don't deserve to win. It was pretty much a bad look, honestly, for both teams. And one of the other things that I talked about was Dino Babers, the head coach of Syracuse, and how they have blown some big leads that they've had. I pointed out LSU. They've had a big lead on Clemson before, and they couldn't put them away. And I just didn't like a lot of the play calling. It was really redundant after a while, very repetitive. And the thing was, it's not that Schrader didn't have time to throw the football back there. Surprisingly, it was very good coverage on the back end by Clemson. Give them some credit, combined with his inability to just make a decision. And I said going into this thing that as a passer, I really felt Schrader was overrated. And that's why Syracuse would have to rely on him to run the football, because anybody who's anybody knows that Schrader has wheels. And the proof was in the pudding. It really was proof in the pudding, as they say. And, I saw some comments, Syracuse fans understandably upset, blaming the refs. But let's be honest, the 15-yard penalty on the hit out of bounds against the backup quarterback, right? Because DJ came out and Clemson was desperate and looking for something. That was a penalty. Syracuse, honestly, they ended up beating themselves. They really did. There's no excuse in this game. If you force 4 turnovers, you give the football back to your team on offense 3 different times, and they can't put any points on the board. Logically speaking, Syracuse should have won that game in a blowout. I mean, the score should have been 45-10, at one point. But Syracuse just offensively just not good enough. I pointed out a few days ago that, there's the difference between a bad or mediocre quarterback, a good quarterback, and a great quarterback. And Schrader is definitely a mid quarterback. He can do some things. Once in a while, he'll make some throws. He's definitely got the wheels. But unfortunately, when all is said and done, you cannot rely on him to beat you with his arm. And they've got a receiver in Gadsden that reminds me a lot of Randy Moss. 6'5", lanky, but man, he can go up and make just about any catch there is. Just throw it up to him and let him go make a play. Pena, hell of a kick returner, in addition to being a pretty good slot receiver. Also very good on the outside. Tucker is as versatile as running back as they come. He's going to the league. He's going to be in the NFL. That's all there is to it. He's probably the best running back in the SEC, in addition to being one of the best running backs in all of college football, outside of maybe Deuce Vaughn at Kansas State. But I got to tell you, I really believe that Syracuse should have won this game running away, but these are the reasons why I felt going in they would not be able to do it, because eventually what happens is your shortcomings end up catching up to you, and Dino Babers in these situations has a tendency to sort of spiral out, and the team doesn't seem to really have any guidance. There was a lot of celebrating on the sideline that I did and didn't mind. Syracuse's defense had every reason to be hyped. But I also felt like the offense, just with their sputtering and the lack of creativity with the play calling, one of the things I said was I felt like Syracuse needed to run some reverse plays with receivers. They needed to figure out all kinds of different things that they could do to, in the run game, create open areas where players could go out and make big plays. And they just weren't able to do so. In addition, they really didn't do anything creative. The fake toss plays after a while got out of control, and ran the swing plays out to Tucker way too much. I understand that they were set up plays for that score that he had, where he finally turned it upfield and cut up, and he was able to get in the end zone on that one particular play. But outside of that, it was just too much, and they were clearly well aware of Schrader's inability to beat anybody with his arm. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. You may think to yourself, oh, no, the coach said this and the coach said that. Watch the play calling. Watch the play calling. It will literally tell you all you need to know. It is obvious that their own coaches, or his own coaches, pardon me, did not believe for 1 second that he could beat Clemson with his arm. And they didn't. Covered sacks, held on to the ball too long, didn't have that trigger in him to just feel the pressure backside, especially in takeoff. And ultimately, you have to give it up to Clemson because they never gave up. And, Dabo tried to put it to bed. There's no quarterback controversy here, and everything is fine. DJ's our guy. We just, needed to do something different, and yada, yada, yada. No, there's going to be a problem in the media, and it's going to be trickle-down economics at this point. The exact same way that, Nick Saban tried to, cover that whole thing with Jalen Hurts and Tua and all that. And look at the end result, right? Tua ends up being the starter, and Jalen, he ends up going to Oklahoma. So when all is said and done, it's on. And don't pretend that there's no effect on the players. I do love DJ for what he did. He went over and it was dabbing him up and saying, let's go, let's get it, being a very supportive teammate. But Jalen was doing all the same things, guys. When all is said and done at the end of this year, one's going to have to go. And that's all there is to it. And but hats off to Clemson. No blame the refs. I know Syracuse fans want to, but the fact of the matter is they beat themselves. They had more than enough opportunities. I mean, hell, all they had to do was literally score at least one touchdown off of 3 possessions that they had from turnovers, and they just could not do it. 21-10 at half, blew the lead. Don't forget, Syracuse was down 7-0. And they scored 21 unanswered points at one point in that football game. They were dominating Clemson. The game was theirs in hand. But I've just seen Dabo slip too many times in this situation, Dino. And as much as I love him, I think, the conversation basically for Dino Babers was he was out the door going into this season. Things don't go right. Syracuse is going to go a different direction. I still think at the end of this year, Syracuse probably goes a different direction. I think they are going to look at this football team and go, with that defense and for the most part, that offense that you've got some NFL guys, and your inability to be able to close out a game is what we're looking at, and you got to go. Dino's my guy. I love him. God bless him. Him and I share a lot of the same beliefs, but it looks like he may need to go. Who knows? Nobody's got a crystal ball, so to speak. And I love the guy. He's done some great things. And since he's been at Syracuse, we've had a couple of good seasons, but, consistency is the thing. And we'll see. I don't know. Maybe they give him another year, kind of depending on how this season turns out. If Syracuse ends up winning the rest of the way, they may keep Dino. And, especially if they get like a good bowl game win. I think Clemson eventually trips up, so it's not really going to matter. And like I said, I don't think either Clemson or Syracuse could compete with a Georgia or Bama or Tennessee. Defensively, Syracuse absolutely could. They showed that. Their defense is not a mistake. I've been telling people for a long time, it's a championship caliber defense. It's been like that since about 2014. But unfortunately, the offense is just not there. And as a result, it just shows you, how hard it really is to find a quarterback. People think playing quarterback is so easy. It's really not. And there are a lot of mid or good QBs out there, but few and far in between are great or exceptional. It's just the way that it is. So, all right, everybody. I am Drew Duncan. This was Sync 57, the sports show. We are wherever you're listening to podcasts, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeart, Google Podcasts, etc. Just tell your device to play Drew Duncan for Sync 57. And as always, stay safe. Take care of yourselves.